Okay, here I am again with an iPad in one hand and a 150-year-old slate chalkboard in the other. Old technology and new technology, right? Man, I'm a person of both worlds. Actually, let's flip back over to this other crazy drawing I've got here where we were talking about in the prior video that most people, do think that, as has been said on the site, that, a larger sensor has a larger area and therefore gathers more light. It's like, well, yeah, ultimately the total amount of lumens gathered here, just like a large solar panel, is gathering more light than a DX sensor over here, which is gathering X amount of lumens. This is going to transfer, let's say this transmits 2.5 watts, and this transmits, I don't know, 1.4 watts of watt seconds of power on a solar panel. Same analogy. Well, I'm getting more power out of the, we're not talking about energy transference here. We're actually talking, the whole image is spread out over here. It doesn't matter if the total image from the full frame sensor is gathering more light in total. What matters is that the gain of these larger photo sites has much better SNR rate than the tiny pixel sites, the photo sites from the DX sensor. Pixel density is much higher in the DX. All that's going to change next year. But for right now, okay, the pixel density is a lot larger, a lot tighter, a lot smaller on the DX sensor than it is on the full frame sensor. But we're not talking about total light here. The whole image is spread out all over the frigging FX or DX sensor. I don't give a damn, nor do you give a damn, if the full frame sensor is gathering more light in total. Okay, if I got a little bird right here, who gives a shit if the full frame sensor is gathering more light than the DX sensor? We got the little bird over here, two cameras taking the same picture of the same little bird. Oh, what happens when we crop the little bird out? Says the nature wildlife photographer. Oh my God. Well, I have a whole lot less photo sites here on the full frame sensor. Okay, the image looks like crap if I try to make an 8x10 of it. Oh, but like over here, my 400mm 2.8, and over here is my 400mm 2.8. I've got a lot more resolving power due to higher pixel density. More information per square millimeter is being transmitted to the AD converters and through the compression, the SNR compression algorithms, and through the processor, and ultimately written to the card. So they're both saved in 14-bit RAW. Okay. There's more information here. It doesn't matter a damn that there's more light here. So the larger sensor, the larger photo sites, better SNR ratio on the larger photo site, just like a dish antenna. Okay, people don't have a rubber ducky sitting on the outside of their house to gather the 400 megahertz signal from their DirecTV satellites that are orbiting the Earth at 100 miles up. They've got satellite dishes. Same thing as a large photo site. It's all about gain. Gain, SNR rate. Oh, but what's happened? Same thing radio astronomers figured out some years ago. Same thing Nikon, Canon, and Sony do. They use time compressional algorithms to eliminate the noise issue. Okay? And like I said from the prior video, listen up, because this is important. Canon and Nikon are going to DX pixel sensor densities for a reason. The lack of gain, the SNR noise issues, has almost been totally resolved. Ultimately, you can only do it so much, but a lot of that has been taken care of. That's why they're going to a new breed of sensors, which is nothing other than a full-frame sensor with DX pixel density. This is fact. It's happening. It can't be refuted. It's hardcore. Let's talk about comments from an ignorant fool over in Diaper and Pee review. Let's just call it that. From Leonard Nimoy, let's just call him Spock for short. My view is that the angry photographer's whining is nearly intolerable. Well, I agree with that part. It's even intolerable to me. However, he's wrong and misleading. He doesn't take into account that you have to enlarge the crop sensor 1.5 times as much as a full-frame image to get the same display size. The crop sensor images need better lens resolution to get the same result. Well, that's a lie. DX sensors only need either better photo site and or firmware SNR processing gain. So that's a total lie. He's showing a focal spot and claiming that the light fell off from the lens. I'm quite sure he doesn't know enough about optics to know there is no such thing. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter if it's a $10,000 Zeiss lens or a $50 a Vivitar lens. Okay? Every lens in the world is center weighted. Anybody, if you actually take a cross-section from the side here, let's say we look at this lens from the cross-sectional side, the image will actually look like this so far as the light density. It'll be really high right here, then it'll feather off. Okay? Every lens is center weighted. Okay? Every pro, anybody that has 2 brain cells knows this. All lenses are center weighted, all of them. Every idiot that knows one thing about lenses knows that there's central sweet spot of every lens. Here we have the DX sensor. Here we have the FX sensor. This is kind of exaggerated. Okay, even the best lenses have these edge issues. The crappy sensors. You can even go on Cambridge's own website, Cambridge, of all places, and they will tell you this fact. And this idiot's like, oh no, that's not true. He says, this guy angry photographer doesn't know that there is no set. Well, yeah, the hell there is. That's why you can take a crappy lens like the older 24-120 and use the DX sensor, DX crop sensor, and actually eliminate that because the angle of interception is this. Okay, instead of the full frame, which is capturing all the crap. Okay, the DX sensors cut the fat off the image. He says, but when you cut the picture height, you cut the resolution. Well, that's a lie. There's much greater resolution in a DX sensor per square millimeter, okay, than an FX. However, what is cut in a DX sensor is the capacity, the angle of interception. You don't cut the resolution by cutting the picture height. The ultimate resolving power due to pixel density is higher on a DX sensor. Now, if he's talking about blowing up a DX image versus an FX image, unedited, whatever, you just take it, you blow it up to 8 by 10. Okay, obviously you have to enlarge that DX image more than you do the FX. But guess what else also happens? DX sensor image has higher pixel density. There's more information there. He says, well, you degrade the performance of the center by enlarging it 50% more. Well, that's a lie. DX sensors don't enlarge anything. Okay, this is the biggest misnomer. A DX sensor doesn't enlarge jack crap. The angle of interception, the field of view has changed, but there is no enlargement of a damn thing on a DX sensor. Nothing is enlarged. Only the angle of interception. DX here, FX here. There is no enlargement. Doesn't exist. It doesn't freaking exist. The lens focal length does not change because the lens used on a different size sensor, just the angle of view. A 50mm is a 50mm, regardless of the sensor type. The only thing that's changed is the angle of interception. It's BS. Focal length multiplier. The DX has a different field of view. It's not the actual magnification of the light shot out of the ass end of the lens from the rear element. That doesn't change. The lens's focal length doesn't change because the lens is used on a different size sensor. Only the angle of view. Then this fool's fool goes on to say, well, the lens's resolution is co-evolved with the sensor resolution to give you the image resolution. That's why I stated any unsharpness from the lens is magnified. Well, that's less than half the case. You've left out the AD converters, the SNR compression algorithms, the processors, and other important factors. There's not just the sensor and the buffer that writes to the damn card. How the hell do you think that Nikon, Canon, and Sony got these tiny little photo sites on the DX sensors? Huge reduction. What do you think the new D7200, which is a DX sensor camera, has such amazing low light detail? It's a high ISO performer. You think that's at the level of the sensor? Oh, no, it isn't. It's not at the level of the sensor. It's in the AD converters and the magical SNR algorithms put in there by Nikon. As for the unsharpness of the lens magnified, this is nonsense. Wildlife shooters with $20,000 lenses, for example, are shooting off of DX cameras for a reason. And this is due to image density, the ultimate amount of data per square millimeter on that sensor. Okay, you can take the best FX camera in the world, and if you've only got certain amount of image data in that postage stamp on the FX sensor, and you blow it up, you've got a lot more a lot more data retention on the DX sensor. It's ridiculous. He goes on to say, well, for any particular lens, you'll invariably get fewer lines per height resolved from a DX sensor than from an FX sensor, unless you get into the extreme case with a 6 megapixel full frame versus a 24 megapixel crop sensor. A 24 megapixel D750 with any full frame lens is going to resolve more lines per height than a 24 megapixel D7200 with the same lens because it has more picture height. Well, that's 100% nonsense. You in fact get more lines per millimeter of height out of a DX sensor than a full frame sensor due to pixel density. Yes, the full frame sensor is larger. What is different is the DX sensor, image logically so, must be enlarged more to achieve an 8x10, for example, than a full frame sensor must be. But the pixel density and the amount of data per square millimeters on a DX sensor is much greater on a DX sensor than it is on a full frame. But all of that is going to change next year, because Nikon and Canon have been sitting on this awesome hot rod, okay, which is a full frame size sensor with DX pixel density, because Nikon and Canon had known for the past 4 years plus that this is the future, and this is the future, starting later at the end of this year, and definitely next year, full-blown next year, is that what's going to happen is you're going to have full-frame sensors with DX pixel density. Because the issues with gain are such that there is more advantages into having a full-frame sensor with DX pixel density than there is a large full-frame sensor with full-frame larger photo sites, because the SNR compressional algorithms that remove out the time variable, which cause bad SNR rates to be popped out of the back of that DX sensor with large pixel density, have been resolved. So not only can you take this full frame next generational sensor with just endless photo sites on it, you could take any little spot and enlarge the dog piss out of if you're an action shooter or a wildlife shooter, and you got a little bird right here, you can have the full frame sensor. It's like, oh great, I'm going to crop out the image here, make a 20 by 30 of it. Now I don't have to worry about large photo sites anymore. I don't have to worry about using a DX sensor doing my wildlife photography, because I've got DX pixel density on a full frame sensor. However, I don't know if they're going to call it a full frame sensor. They might call it FFX, or who the hell knows what they're going to call it. But just remember that the only thing that changes is the angle of interception. Okay? The light density is the light density is the light density. There is no enlargement that goes on from a DX sensor versus a full frame sensor. Lenses are stupid. They don't give a shit if they're taking a crap on a DX sensor, and they don't give a damn if they're taking a crap on an FX sensor. The only difference is angle of interception of the projected light from that rear element. That's like saying a fat person that's got the runs gives a damn if he's taking a crap on a small toilet versus a large toilet. You know, he might he might only get half of it in there if he's sitting on a tiny little toilet developed for like a toddler. But it doesn't make any difference. He doesn't give a damn. That's kind of a crude analogy, isn't it? Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm glad I could correct some of the bull crap that's over there on Diaper and Peer Review. Catch you.